Hey everybody, welcome here. I'm Maika, I'm a psychologist, and in this video I answer the following question that I was sent. How can we come to terms with where we are in life? I have a lot of shame connected to where I am in life career-wise. I have no regrets about the major choices I've made, prioritizing my family over my career. But now that my kids are grown up, I can't help but remember the high expectations my colleagues had of me back in the day. I've always felt shame very intensely, but now it is especially intense. The first thing I'd like to focus on when sharing my thoughts to this question is a practice from compassion-focused approaches that invites us to look for what they call the common humanity in our situation. This means shifting our perspective from seeing how our situation makes us different from others and disconnects us from them to looking for ways how it connects us with other people. Shame is often called the most painful of our emotions because it cuts us off from feeling connected to others. It feels like I've somehow failed my people, and when they notice, they won't want me around anymore. I'm not good enough to belong, to be accepted and safe in a community. So shame makes us feel rejected, isolated, and alone. And a way of breaking through that is by looking for the ways in which our situation connects us to other people. A way your particular situation does that is it connects you to everyone who has ever chosen to prioritize taking care of their family over particular career choices for a big chunk of their lives. And I think we can probably all think of someone who has made that choice. So you're probably not alone in sometimes thinking, wow, I could have really taken my career places. It also connects you to anyone who has ever made the choice to prioritize anything else over their career, their health, personal growth, supporting a nonprofit organization or cause that's important to them. And it also connects you to everyone. And this is now the deepest level of this shared human experience reflection, because no one can pursue all opportunities. We all have to make choices. And it's part of the human experience to sometimes look back and wonder how our life would be different now if we would have taken a different path or somehow miraculously had been able to pursue both paths at the same time. So when you envision your ex-colleagues drinking lemonade in their big backyards, putting their business shoes on their tables and relaxing, completely satisfied with how their lives turned out, remind yourself that that's not their whole story. I'm sure that they also sometimes wonder how their life would be different now if they'd have made a different choice at some point. Do you notice how much easier it gets to relate to this type of wondering about paths not taken when we do it from the awareness that everyone goes through that it's not just me because I did something wrong, because there's something wrong with me, but that it just can't be avoided. It's part of the human experience. No life comes without this question. We may ask it at different points in our lives, in different ways, and connected to different life areas, depending on which paths we chose to take and which paths we didn't take. But we all arrive in front of this question at some point, probably more than once, in larger and smaller ways. And making ourselves aware of that is a powerful antidote to shame. And you can also expand this reflection into your relationships, to ask your friends about the paths that they sometimes wonder about and hear their stories. It's very connecting and soothing. Another thing that's helpful to be aware of is your shame shadows from your past. Most of us have them to different degrees. And in your question, you mentioned that you've always felt shame very intensely. That's a strong indicator that during your childhood, there was something or someone that trained you to live in a shame mindset. intentionally or most likely unintentionally, somehow you were made to feel like you weren't good enough. And that's why shame has been there for as long as you can remember and has become such a dominating emotion and mindset for you. This is very important to be aware of because the way we were taught to go through life in our formative years sets us up to keep living like that for the rest of our lives unless we invest into change. So if we have a strong shame pattern and mindset programmed into our psyche, this pattern will keep recreating itself. And here comes the important point. No matter what you do, no matter which choices you make, which paths you take, this pattern will find ways to keep itself fresh and alive within you. So no matter which relationship you're in, no matter how successful you or your kids are, this childhood shame pattern will always make you feel like none of that is enough. No matter what you try to do or change about yourself, to change the facts on paper about you, that childhood shame will always make it seem like it's not enough. You could have the best job, the greatest income, the highest position, the highest degree in your field. You could get the highest awards. None of that will ever be enough. And this childhood shame will always make it seem like you somehow failed your career or the other path that you couldn't take because you received all those awards. Whatever you do, whatever paths you take, no matter how much you achieve externally, as long as this childhood shame pattern has a grip on your mind, you will feel like none of that is enough and that there's reason to be ashamed or feel shame about yourself. So the solution can never be to try to become good enough, because that will never work in that way. The solution is to recognize that childhood pattern and step out of it, to not allow it to dictate what's real to you anymore. And the first important step is to learn to recognize it in the act, to recognize when it becomes active in you and starts taking over your sense of what's real, to recognize all the emotions that come along with it. So you can easily feel it creeping in. The physical sensations that are connected to this pattern, the thoughts and beliefs, so that you can then recognize it for what it is. This isn't a thought that is objective truth. This is programming from my past that isn't helpful to me anymore. And I will now take the deciding power of deciding what's real for me and which mindset I want to live from back from this pattern. And I will give it to myself. I get to decide that it's more helpful to me to live from a mindset of I'm basically good enough and my worth is not negotiable. And once you've practiced recognizing this childhood pattern, and when it becomes active in you, you can practice stepping out of it. This is called cognitive diffusion or disidentifying or unblending from an inner part. That doesn't mean you have to struggle against it, fight with it, or try to force it out. We can't just press uninstall with these childhood programs. What it means is to stop looking through that lens and unquestioningly taking that to be what's true about you and your life. Switch into a more updated narrative, a narrative that's helpful to you and applies to the reality of your situation, a narrative that comes from a place of kindness, self-acceptance, compassion, and common humanity, not from the harshness that created that childhood shame pattern. Those are not the standards that you want to live by anymore. Those are not the ideals and values that resonate with you. You will not keep putting these concocted expectations onto yourself anymore. And again, the goal isn't to try and erase these patterns and never again experience a flare-up of this pattern in your mind. We all have these flare-ups, the occasional negative thought and unpleasant emotion that's part of life. The goal is not to buy into everything that crosses our mind and not to jump onto every train that passes by. The goal is to become more picky with the thoughts that we give reality status to, that we allow to create our reality and guide our decisions. Give yourself permission to see that when you came into this world, you were good enough just the way you were, like any baby is. And that this is the feeling, mindset, baseline, and fundament from which we should all be raised. And that now that you're not dependent on adults the way you were as a child, you can pave this fundament for yourself. You don't owe it to anyone to feel shame. Also not to the metaphorical ghosts of your ex-colleagues in your mind that think you could have gone to bigger places career-wise. Your new narrative could sound something like this. First, address your inner child. You really tried very hard to make the adults in your life happy. Because of their situation, whatever that was, they weren't able to give you the sense and feeling that you're good enough just the way you are, that you're a great kid, and that you will have a wonderful and full life. This feeling that you're not good enough was never based on the reality of who you are. You've always deserved to relax into the confidence and security of trusting yourself and the truth that comes from your inner world. And then turn to yourself now. I am enough just the way I am. I've done many great things in my life, even if others don't see it that way, because perhaps they don't see the value in emphasizing family the way I did, or maybe they don't see the heartfelt effort that I put into it. I'm now at a crossroad in my life and starting a new phase. And this is different for me than it's for others because of the choices that I made, and I'm at peace with that. Others will arrive at different crossroads in different phases of their lives, but we all arrive at them. This is something that connects me with other people. I will accompany myself into this new phase of my life with lots of loving support, acceptance, kindness, and compassion. I hope there was something in this for all of you. To the person who asked, thanks for asking. I wish you all the best in finding your next steps internally and externally. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you're new here, maybe also on my website to my weekly self-leadership newsletter. Till next time, take care, and remember, catch the childhood shame pattern in the act and then switch into the I'm enough mindset.